This resolution marks the 9th anniversary of the unprovoked attack on our nation by individuals without conscience and on behalf of masters without mercy. Those who witnessed the events of September 11th will always remember the inconceivable images and seemingly impossible events that unfolded before our own eyes. But how painful of our own memories may be, they cannot compare with the suffering of the innocents who bore the horror directly, nor with their families and friends whose lives were torn apart without any warning. Our purpose here is to honor and remember the victims and the many heroes of that endless day, September 11th. We honor the thousands of innocent men, women, and children who were targeted and murdered simply because they were Americans or because they embraced the concept of freedom and democracy. We honor those who, instead of being immobilized by fear, immediately began to search for and rescue survivors at great risk to themselves, many of whom lost their lives in the efforts to save many others. We honor those in our military who have fought our enemies in distant lands and borne heavy burdens to prevent them from striking us yet again. And even as I speak, men and women in our armed forces are fighting for us and our country far from their homes in far-off lands. And it's affected many people, even here in Washington, D.C., and in the Congress and our staffs. My own Chief of Staff has 2 sons that have served in Iraq and Afghanistan in the Marine Corps. And there are many others as we speak today. On September 11th, we were forced to realize that we had experienced was not really an isolated blow, but instead only the latest assault in a war that radical Islamic militants have been waging against the United States for years. We had already suffered many casualties over the preceding decades, but had not understood that those were in fact from a series of battles in an ever and less escalating war against the United States and a war against freedom. These include the taking of our embassy in Iran and the holding of American hostages for 444 days, the destruction of our embassy and Marine barracks in Lebanon in the 1980s, the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993, the attacks on the Khobar Towers in Saudi Arabia in 1996, and the attacks of the USS Cole and our embassies in Kenya and Tanzania also in the 1990s. And at this very moment, our enemies are planning and preparing to strike us again with the same intent of slaughtering as many innocent people as they possibly can. We cannot protect ourselves by hoping that somehow we will be spared new attacks, for these are certain to come unless we take action to prevent them. And we have done so. Over the past 9 years, we have come to know our enemies, their plans, and their methods. We are daily engaged in seeking them out, finding them in their hiding places and in their holes, uncovering their networks and eliminating their ability to harm us again. But our enemies have many allies and have sunk deep roots that will not be easily destroyed. Victory will not be achieved in one decisive battle, but through a sustained commitment that will stretch over many years. It will be fought in many different ways using the range of U.S. resources and capabilities, and it be fought in many other places. Some may shrink from that prospect, but if we are to prevail over this enemy that is relentless in its hatred for us, our commitment to our nation and the principles that we stand for, we must not only match but exceed their determination, the determination of our adversaries. This is not really a war of choice, but one that has been forced upon us by men whose dark vision of the world cannot be realized without first destroying America and our freedoms. Repeatedly throughout its history, our country has been challenged by forces that at times seemed impossible to overcome. But however dark the unknowns we faced and however great our fears, we never shrank from our duty as a nation, and we have always prevailed with the good Lord's help. And on this day, let us remember that we have not lost the many heroes with us which we have been blessed, and those with whom our safety depends. And let us remember that they gave their lives for our country. And we should do our duty as all generations that have preceded us have done. And God bless this country now and always.